Right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Antara. I am from Team 3, and I want to quickly introduce you to the team. We have Anant, Ritu, Jinal, Steffi, and Kruti. Can you all say hi to them?
Hi everyone. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, all the best.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We would be talking about the topic that you already saw, and these are the topics, the subtopics that we'll be covering in today's presentation, which you see on the screen right now. So let's get started with the presentation. Okay, guys, let's start with the POSH session. Men need fixing. This training is mandatory because you men are a significant source of problems. Women need protection, and that's why POSH is important. If you don't take this training seriously, you could lose your job or even go to jail. I want pin drop silence during the session because I want you to ask questions only after the session is over. Now, these are statements one should never, ever use when conducting a POSH session, right? How many of us agree? Please raise your hands. All right, thank you. Thank you for confirming that. Because if we do, this would actually be a recipe for disaster. Ineffective training programs focus only on the problem. And when you do an aggressive training regarding POSH, you might actually see an increase in the number of cases. So it is safe to say that the POSH training needs to be like a balancing act. If you're too serious, you will lose your audience. And if you're too casual, the POSH session would become a topic of laughter. Hence, a well-planned POSH session is extremely important. And that is exactly what we're going to be covering today. So I'd request Kruti to go to the next slide, please. All right. Why POSH? Diversity and inclusion, unconscious bias, the impact of society, media, culture, and then we come to the POSH and sexual harassment behaviors. This is the ideal flow. But what if we do not do this and directly move to POSH and sexual harassment behaviors? What would happen? What could go wrong? What are the challenges that we might foresee? I remember 3 years ago in my organization, we had invited a professional to come and do POSH training for us. And to say it was a disaster would be an understatement. It was rigid, strict, very legal, and there was no context set. And needless to say, it had zero impact, and it actually became a joke. We laughed about it for weeks together. So the reason why we need a very structured flow, which includes different things, is important to create that impact. Because if we don't, how will we break the myth? And how will we know that there is a mindset shift, which is one of the main objectives of the POSH training session? The second thing that could go wrong is awareness of the actions and behaviors won't happen unless you don't know where they're stemming from. If you don't tell the impact the media, songs, movies have, how would you know what change we need to bring in? People won't even know where to draw the line because they won't know anything about their biases. Unconscious bias is a very important topic to cover in that. Yeah. POSH policy, sexual harassment will not be clear unless DNI and unconscious bias is not there. Every trainer looks for that aha moment when they conduct a training session. That would be missing if you don't go with the actual flow. And lastly, how would we make this content relevant for people so they are more receptive towards POSH unless we make it relatable? Hence, this flow. I request Kruti to move to the next slide, please. Now, we come to the next point, which is engagement. Customize the content. Pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? But would we use the same slide deck that we use for other clients, for all our clients? No, right? Imagine you're doing a POSH training for young adults. Would you present a very black and white slide? They would switch off. So making that customized for the people, the culture, including the organization, what level this training is for, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. Otherwise, it would be a big flop. Examples, again, a very self-explanatory point, but ensuring that we have a huge bank of examples and that too wide variety of examples becomes very important. Let me give you one small example. Very recently, in the organization I presently work with, we introduced something known as a paternity leave. Now, this isn't the maternity paternity, it's the PET paternity leave. We have a lot of people who choose not to become parents, but they want to have pets as their kids. And when you adopt a pet and get a pet into your house for the first time, they take time to adjust, right? So we started a policy to give them a couple of days leave to just get adjusted to that. Now, isn't that an example of inclusivity? And examples like that, which are varied in categories that you could probably share. So that was the second point, making it experiential. POSH training is not a one-way street. You can't stand here, just give gyan to people. I mean, we've all seen that and we know how that works, right? Just having those activities that involve the audience is important. Otherwise, you'll see people busy with their phone, sideline, they'll have a new tab, or sometimes even snoring. I mean, and I've seen that happen as well. The other 2 points, which are, Kruti, if you could just go to the next. While Kruti does that, the other 2 points are scenario-based learning and animation, powerful images that create engagement. See, these are tried and tested methods. They will never fail. We all, whoever has done training, we know they work. In fact, in the first presentation, Aparna herself mentioned how storytelling is important, right? So these are just methods which have worked and we should continue using those. That will also help the session not be drab and boring. And if you want your audience and your team to know, if you want to know if they've understood what you're saying, quizzes or just role plays are the best way, really. So a combination of these points are important to bring the balance of seriousness and fun in your training program. And honestly, without that, it is just a tick in the box. That's exactly what we don't want. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Anand to talk about the next topic. Thank you. Over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Antara. Thank you so much. Yes, as a internal trainer or as a trainer, we need to understand the resistance of change. And before going forward up to resistance of change, we need to understand some perspective which is we are facing from last so many years about the female employees and all these things. The past perspective is that the woman is not equal to career. They are mostly interested to temporary or part-time or low responsibility jobs. And the second word is if she want to do the job, then her first priority will be the taken care of her family. Then if she want to work under their family expectation and all these things. Then unmarried woman with the job during the marriage, after the marriage, then after marriage, she can quit the job during the pregnancy. Then if still she want to work, then the family is first over the job. And all these perspectives makes women, the housemaker. We see our elders or maximum women in the past are mostly housemakers, and just because of these perspectives. But nowadays, at the present scenario, what says the women are not inferior to men, and both family and job could be matter for them. Are you agree with me? It's clearly indicate that when we see when we going to attend, or when we thought that I need to attend one training session on this session, so I'm seeing that so many females are there. It means means the family and job, both are matters to them, and then the job is not temporary, it could be extra income for them. And the result is the females are nowadays working with the males very effectively. Okay, and then we come to the need, what mindset we need to change. And I'm not a good singer, so it's clear I need to one support from your side. I'm going to play one song, and I'm expecting the second line, or when I will pause the song, then I'm expecting the second next part of that song from your side in chat box. I'm expecting it in chat box. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
Yeah. What will be the next line of this song?
ये उसका स्टाइल होगा, होठों बना दिल में हाँ होगा।
ये क्यों assume कर रहे हैं हम? ये जो perspectives है ना, ये स्टाइल होगा या ना, हर ना के पीछे एक हाँ होता है, blah 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 blah. So many things we are assumption. This is only assumptions. Have you seen the movie of Pink? That the verdict or last argument of Amitabh Bachchan. It is very अगर आपने नहीं देखी है तो ऑब्वियसली जाके देखो वो मूवी, आपको पसंद आएगी, सच्ची में पसंद आएगी. देन एंड देन ओनली वी कैन conclude ourselves or see ourselves as a yes, we are internal trainers or trainer of POSH. Then cracking the jokes on the women. So yeah, you are just women making babies is all of your women's only can making babies. Babies ये सबसे ज्यादा दुनिया की सबसे ज्यादा ताकत है जो बेबीज बनाना, वो गॉड ने वुमेन्स को दी है. वी कैन नॉट मेक अ जोक ऑन इट. So all these things we need to understand the proper way and make the women comfortable at the workplace, and then only we can see. And then the last one picture which I would like to share, that I like to see all females in the natural bodies. Can we see our mother and sister in natural bodies? If no, then we need to think on it. One last example regarding the Sunita Williams. जब Sunita Williams गई थी अपने टीम मेंबर्स के साथ स्पेस में, हमने सबने सुनीता विलियम्स का बहुत गुणगान गाया, बहुत ही शी इज एक्सीलेंट, उसने बहुत अच्छा जॉब किया है, डन किया है, उसमें कोई दोहराई नहीं है. लेकिन कूडोस टू दैट 5 पीपल्स जिन्होंने उस सुनीता विलियम्स को अपने आप में कंफर्टेबल महसूस करने दिया. तो आज के मेल कम्युनिटी को मेरा एज अ ट्रेनर यही एक मैसेज है कि जो भी फीमेल्स अपने आजू बाजू आएंगी उनको हमारे साथ काम करने में हमें वो कंफर्टनेस देना चाहिए, वो ट्रस्ट फील करना चाहिए. That's it from my side. I will pass out to next. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ritu, and I'm going to talk about challenges of language when it comes to delivering a POSH session. So I want to start by sharing one of the most influential moments in my life that still crosses my mind and often helps me go on. So when I was training to become an English language trainer in 2019, after a really bad mock teaching session, my mentor came to me for feedback. So imagine a frail 80-something British guy with decades of experience across the globe, not just in teaching, but in life. And he smiled and went on to destroy my whole belief system before building it back up again with just one line. Ritu, communication is not the key, comprehension is. You're failing because you're communicating this, but the students at their level cannot comprehend. I felt a light bulb go on. Oh, comprehension is key. And that is true for every kind of training there is. So let's see what are some of the challenges that can hamper comprehension while delivering a POSH training session and how to overcome them as well. So first, being using legal language. So how many of us are lawyers here? A small show of hands. Okay, so I for one cannot make heads or tails when it comes to legal talk. I still have to ask someone else to decipher it for me. Training that uses a lot of legal jargon like vicarious liability, governmental scrutiny, to name a few, can be counterproductive because it makes the session less engaging and appealing. And there's a high chance that the session will turn into a snooze fest, and we definitely do not want that. Moreover, it can be highly confusing for audience members who are not familiar with the legal terms, and hence the training isn't as effective as it should have been to make an impact and impart knowledge. The second, another issue with language during POSH session is not using gender neutral terms and implying that there is only one gender that can harass while the other is just a victim. So using statements like men harass women in the workplace or women should approach the IC within 90 days are plain wrong. This gives the audience an impression that any other scenario where the roles are reversed or include people of the same gender harassing the other are completely okay and do not fall under the purview of sexual harassment. This too sends out the wrong message, making sure to use gender neutral terms like they and them while explaining the act, citing multiple examples of different scenarios where different genders are involved is important, and not just just the archaic definition of sexual harassment. Moving on, the next issue is language barrier. Trainers should always make sure that they have a knowledge of the composition of their audience and the language they can comprehend. Traditionally, the mindset is to deliver training in English because, again, English is the biggest sign that I'm educated and we know and we are fancy. But that's not always true when you're a trainer. Delivery trainer is in English. Language can be counterintuitive if the audience is composed of members who do not comprehend it. Thus, in such situation, it is important to deliver training in a language the majority understand, or maybe conduct different sessions depending on the language the groups are comfortable with. Moreover, in certain situations, like Aparna is trained at, it is impactful to converse a little in the local language to make the session a little more engaging and everyone feels included and involved. Lastly, trainers need to be very mindful of the language used when citing real-life examples. Over a journey, we will come across multiple cases and be privy to gruesome details, but not everyone will have the stomach for it like we do, because we made the choices, but they did not. It is important to note that not all examples are appropriate to share during training due to their nature, and it is important to grade and censor our language, since it may be triggering for some people of the audience. Being sensitive about it all is crucial and be one of the most important points to be mindful of. All in all, language plays a huge role while imparting a POSH training, and the correct language can make it that much more impactful. Over to Gina. Thank you.
Thanks, Ritu. A lot of your points will be covered also in my bit because inclusion is so much about language. So my topic is around creating inclusive and accessible training. As trainers, we often overlook this part because we are so focused on content, but we also have to be mindful that our audience is always going to be diverse and multi-generational. So while building the content, we have to make sure that we are thinking about the needs, the diverse experiences, the different kind of abilities and perspectives that people have. So when designing your module, keep that thought very actively in your mind. Next slide, please. Now, there are very simple ways, simple habits that we all can incorporate to make sure that we are, one more click, please, to create like a more inclusive experience during our training session. So we have to be relevant, inclusive, diverse, and use relatable examples. Here's how we can do it. We've spoken about inclusive language, but from a trainer's point of view, we also have to understand that the role models. Using things like guys is wrong. We have to focus on folks, maybe. Assuming that an HR is always going to be she is also wrong. HR can be anyone. So as role models, we have to use inclusive terminology during our training modules. We also have to cite LGBTQI examples, not only to make them feel included or safeguard their rights, but also to help them understand that their actions will also have consequences. So a male to male or a female to female consequence or a sexual harassment will also have some, liability to the law. Next, we also have to cite examples from the persons with disability. I'm sorry, can you go back? Yeah. We also have to cite examples of persons with disabilities. We've spoken about intersectionality. We have to be mindful that people with disabilities who get a job are already so grateful about having a job that they will not want to do anything to sabotage it. So to use these examples will help them feel like, okay, they too have a voice, they too are acknowledged. And if they are experiencing something, they can reach out to the IC committee to seek help. So we have to use these examples during our sessions. Lastly, we also have to, be mindful about the digital age. Instagram DMs, social media stalking, etc. are things that really happen. So make it more relatable to even the real scenarios. And this is not only for the Gen Z, but really, everyone nowadays uses Facebook, Instagram. So use digital examples as well. Now, these were some examples that you can use in your training content. Now, how can you create a safe space during your session? So be sure to be present. Use your body language to acknowledge the person who is talking. Do not use your phone, during your sessions. Very simple way to pay attention. Use images or elements that are reflective of the real diversities that exist in the world. And also in the start of your session itself, create a scenario, give a situation where people are sharing different opinions, and they're also feeling comfortable about it. So the idea is to give them a feeling that diverse perspectives and opinions are not only okay, but they're actually welcomed and are actually helpful for the session. Last, this is a pro tip: before you go into any session for, before you go into any client's place for a training session, ask them if there is any requirement for a reasonable accommodation during the session. Even better, you prepare your content to be set for people with hearing disabilities, visual disabilities, or mobility disabilities. There are very simple ways you can do it. Is you can send in the content in a PDF screen reader friendly format before the session. If you could please go to the next slide. Second, for people with hearing impairments, you can also, you must use subtitles during your video so they understand what is happening. You can also invite a sign language interpreter. In case of an in-person session, you can make sure that your hall is accessible, they have ramps, and make sure that people with people who use wheelchairs or are using canes, they are closer to the fire exit. So in case of any hazard, they can move out quickly. So there are many more content available. And if you'd like to know more about how you can create more inclusive and accessible POSH training, please do reach out to me. But for now, I'll hand it over to the next person.
Thank you, Gina. That was insightful. This is Kruti, and I will take the legal aspect of challenges as a POSH trainer. So when it comes to POSH Act, we are trying to make a sensitization session or awareness session about legal. So we have to use the legal language, or is that mandatory? No. We can be very crisp and tell them the history about how the act was formed. We don't need to necessarily go deep diving into each and every guidelines and all those things, but a brief history can be a good starter, as history of law should be covered. Then why and how much history should be covered, legal language. Identification of your audience, targeted audience, is utmost important. You are conducting a POSH training session for whom? If it is for the employee, make them aware about the law. Don't get into the legality aspect of it. The basic part you can always tell and appraise them, make them aware. But what you need to conduct to the IC member, you need not tell an employee. For IC, it will go far more in detail. For a senior management person, this will be a quick one. And if there are advocates whom you are taking the training, then those aspects will be different. And a group like us, then it has to be a 360 and a detailed version of it. So we will have to change our training after identifying the targeted audience. So the identification of TG is at most important. Next, so many organizations today does POSH policies just as a tick mark activity. We should avoid that. To avoid legal, penalties, or, that's why they are undertaking these trainings, or hence they are demeaning the trainers' frequency of training, the quality also. So an organization where even the employer's attitude is not, serious about the whole act, the employees will pick up that and they will not get motivated to attend the training. Even the quality and the frequency of the training will be hampered. So it should not be looked as just a tick mark activity for any organization. When it comes to POSH training, the legal aspect, too much of legality becomes a problem. When you are conducting a training and imparting it to a larger audience, and if you keep on mentioning about the law, then maybe what is inappropriate, which is not included, is okay. We should not encourage that. We should, the training will go beyond what the law says. It will go, even a rude or offensive behavior at workplace is wrong. And a no means no. That is all we have to, make them aware of. The law protects only women. So we are, it is prevention of sexual harassment and for women, right, at the workplace. And this can be a challenge while you are imparting the training. So maybe your tone should be gender neutral, or you should have a neutral policy that it is not okay to, harass the other gender also. That will, you have to ensure you are doing a inclusivity while giving a training also. I would like to conclude by saying each one of us has a role to play while removing challenges in implementing this act. This is not just an act that everyone should follow, but it is a mindset change we are trying to build in the society. I will now pass out to my next colleague, Steffi.
Thank you, Kriti. Hi, Aparna. Should we continue?
Yeah, continue. I think we can give you 5 minutes. Will that
Thank
be
you.
fine?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Great. Hi, everyone. You guys have been quiet for quite some time, and I'm not really liking it. So before we start with what the triggers are, Kriti, can you please go to the first slide? Yeah. So before we, move on and I tell you what triggers could be, anybody, I could probably take quick two options from somebody of what you think triggers could be, from the POSH perspective. Anyone, please. So past experience, all right. Any one more, please?
Maybe any of your known colleagues or relatives being affected by it. So that could also be
Yeah.
a trigger because
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So thank you. I mean, I'm glad because I just wanted to get you talking because I know listening can be could be twice difficult as much as it's easy to talk. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So I'm going to be talking about triggers. And when I say triggers, it's mostly about the workplace triggers. So Kriti, can you please show us the first slide? Great. So, we have multiple reasons or multiple reasons of why we could have triggers. Now, let's look at a few that we have the time in hand for. So, homogeneous workplace. Just imagine all of us of the same, background. Just imagine all of us working in a place of white people and there's just one brown. And imagine how one person will feel. So, it's very important that we have a diverse culture and people across the globe or across the city come together to work together. So it's very important that the person feels included. So yes, it has to be a very conscious effort because this can be one of the triggers for sexual harassment as well. Non-conformity at workplace, very, very important. It could be a great place to be, a brand name to be. However, it's very important that, the person or the culture of the organization has, set certain benchmarks of how they would want to protect the rights of their employees, how much they empower their employees, how much they want their employees to be feeling safe and feeling valued for. So very, very important, because if this is not there, then that's another cause for sexual harassment. Can we have the next slide, please? Cultural language and differences. I think this is something that we've seen time and again in all our presentations where we've talked about the fact that, culture and language differences can be an issue. Imagine, you're going to a place, I'm taking an example from where I am in Maharashtra, and all of them are speaking the same language, which is Marathi, and you don't understand. You're going to feel excluded. You're going to feel that they're making fun of you. They may pass some remarks, maybe not, but you may constantly feel that. So it's very important that people from all walks of life are included so that there's no exclusion and leading to any other triggers. Young workforce, we all know we have all generations working together, but the most important is the young workforce, students, college students and school children in school. All of them are well educated about what sexual harassment is, what kind of touch is welcoming, what kind of touch is not welcoming. Even at workplaces, not only women, but it has to be an overall education that's given to all of us, so that we're all on the same page. Moving to the next slide. It's important that high value employees, I mean, just imagine you have high top performers in your organization and none of them conform with the culture, none of them bother about how to treat women or how to treat humans specifically. So just imagine how that place will be to work. I'm sure none of us want to be there. Client servicing, very important that our clients are also educated about our policies and we tell them of how we treat our employees so that they treat them the same. Last but not the least, isolated workplace. This is very codependent and invariable with the other slides that we talked about, the fact that we do not want anybody to feel isolated. Everybody has to feel included, because isolation can lead to some kind of sexual harassment activities as well, where somebody finds you and kind of passes a remark or mentally harasses you. Tolerance at workplace, very, very important. My last point, and I wanted to keep it for the last because it's very important to know when to be tolerant and when not to be tolerant, because there are certain things that are acceptable and certain things are not. And I think companies should definitely work on a topic like culture of tolerance, because we have a lot of people not talking about what they go through, and it's very, very important that all of our people are coaxed and educated and given an opportunity to talk how they feel, because that's when people will start coming out and talking about their issues and we can solve them. So that brings me to the end of the triggers. But to conclude, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take. Otherwise, yes, we can move on.